you have written about Ray Dalio and his interest in China. He's been very outspoken about China perhaps as the next great superpower. On this show, Peter Zeihan has said to me very much the opposite, that China could be on the brink of catastrophe. What do you see ahead for China and their economy?
Well, I do see that they're running into difficulties, particularly after the coronavirus. Their manufacturing is probably not going to pick up to the level it once was. I think a lot of investors are starting to move their production outside of China. That being said, the Chinese Communist Party is pretty resourceful. They understand the challenges they face. Peter Zeihan talks about that they have a demographics issue. The Chinese know this. And in fact, I think they have a plan for it. I think the Belt and Road initiative is very much revolving around finding an opportunity for their excess male population to intermingle and intermarry with the populations of the nations, and as part of the Belt and Road initiative, seeing huge influx and investment in low value added manufacturing in Africa, and tens of thousands of Chinese have gone to these different manufacturing hubs that are on the Belt and Road initiative. Dalio talks about the ebb and flow in time, and the kind of like the Thucydides trap book that Graham Allison wrote. He surmises that China is going to surpass the United States. I think they have the option to, the ability to. Whether or not they will actually fulfill that, I think has a lot to do with their own ambitions, and how does that square with the rest of the world, and are they on board? I think one of the things that Russia's seen with its invasion of Ukraine is a pushback from the Europeans. I think the Chinese, very much want to take back Taiwan. I think they will take back Taiwan at some point. And then it's how is the rest of the world going to respond to that, and does that, fit into China's plans? Of course, they've used the Belt and Road Initiative as a means to create their own economic ecosystem. It's a pretty ambitious approach, and I think the jury is still out on whether or not they're going to be successful. But I don't subscribe to Zeihan's collapse view, and I certainly don't subscribe to Ray Dalio's, they're going to be the next superpower view. I think I subscribe to pieces of both, but I think we're going to have to see how China, the Chinese Communist Party, and the rest of the world kind of interact to see the outcome.
And you said something along the lines of, if their ambition is to surpass the U.S., you believe they have the option. Is there an alternative ambition? The narrative I seem to hear is that China wants to become the dominant force in the world.
Well, I think it's the approach that they take to achieve that. I think if they continue on the sort of the last 4 decades approach, which is to hide their capability and bide their time, not be too aggressive or antagonistic, I think that has been very successful for them. And they have the tendency to erode any difference of opinion outside of China, as long as they're continuing to at least appear like they're playing by the rules. So using corporations and financial institutions in the West to essentially be a proxy for what they're trying to do, I think has been very effective. To the extent that they are more aggressive, with their wolf warrior diplomacy, or militarily aggressive, I think that's going to actually backfire for them. I don't think it's going to necessarily see them be as successful as they have for the last 4 decades. So it really depends on which way she goes. You could have seen or expected that after he consolidated power in this last party Congress, that maybe he was going to double down on being aggressive and on wolf warrior diplomacy. Actually, he's kind of backed away from that. When they had the protests over coronavirus, he slowly kind of relaxed COVID restrictions. I think they're running into and realize they're running into economic difficulties, and the way that they've gotten out of that in the past is to engage the West in a more conciliatory fashion. So he's kind of been counter to, I think, what people expected him to do after the Party Congress. That's what actually makes me nervous, because I think you could see the West essentially letting them continue to do what they've been doing because they see this less aggressive China as more palatable than the wolf warrior China.
And that makes you nervous. Why is that exactly?
Well, because their brand of authoritarianism is a brand that is increasingly being adopted around the world, not just in emerging market economies, but you saw with the coronavirus and the use of these very powerful tools that Silicon Valley has created, this idea of a world where widespread spying and censorship is just built into the overall business model. That is not good for democracies. That is how the Chinese Communist Party have modeled their system. So to the extent that they can leverage their relationships with the business community, with the financial community, to, in a sense, create a global narrative that supports this idea of, essentially IT-based authoritarianism, then you're going to see the Chinese model rise to the fore.
If you enjoyed this, you'll probably enjoy my discussion with Peter Zeihan, where we discuss the geopolitics of China, with Michael Beckley, where we discuss China's military, and with Denny McMahon, where we discuss China's economy. Links to those are available in the description.